She's a Mona Lisa. Everyone's lining up to see her. She's a Mona Lisa. Everyone's lining up to see her.
Hey guys, welcome back to episode 6 of Create This Book. Starting today with create plans for a building. Now, the first thing that I did was I just sketched out a building, and I was inspired by my visit to Paris where I went to the Palace of Versailles. One day, I would love to stay in a castle just to experience it. I don't care that it might be really cold and really noisy and very spacious, but I just want to try it one day. So as you can see, the theme today is I'm going to be using watercolors, and I've already made a grave mistake, and that is starting with dark colors. This is my first time using watercolors. I inherited this palette from my sister. Now, I should have watched some tutorials, but I just went ahead and painted it like it was acrylic paint. So tip for you guys, the technique that I'm using at the moment is called wet on dry. And what that is you put the watercolor paint directly onto a dry surface, and what happens is you end up getting very sharp, dark lines. And that is what they normally use, what you're normally supposed to use when you are trying to have defined lines and very dark lines. So the next time when I use watercolor, I will have a separate brush just for clear water that I can put onto the paper, and that will create a wet on wet technique, and that will make it easier to build up colors and to control the texture as well.
Slow it down like that. Just hold me down like that. Yeah. She's a Mona Lisa. Everyone's lining up to see her.
After I finished coloring everything in, I outlined the whole drawing with felt tip pen, and I put in the tiles for the roof. And this is the finished product, and this is my first watercolor painting. I'm not too happy with it, but I guess for a first attempt it's not too bad. I'll just keep working at it. Okay, so moving on, the next one is create unlikely art. Make art out of ordinary objects. So what I did was I looked around and I just drew out the things that were on my table, starting with my desktop computer that I use to play games and edit. So the logo that I'm drawing is the logo of the game that I play called Overwatch, and I probably spent too many hours on it. Is there something that you guys spend a lot of time on? Is it YouTube, Netflix, games? Let me know in the comments down below. Other things that are on my table include my pink Starbucks cup, some paint brushes, some perfume that I recently bought by Jo Malone. It's the Orange Blossom scent. I really like it. And just my Bose speakers. After tracing everything, I went ahead and painted everything with the watercolor. I don't recommend it using the paper in the book. It definitely bleeds and the paper starts to get a little bit scratchy as well. So I quickly moved back to markers just because it was just too much leakage on that side. after. I liked that I added the prism-like background, otherwise it'd look a little bit plain, but I think that sometimes we have to appreciate the ordinary things that we have, because they can also be extraordinary. Okay, so the last page we'll be doing from Moriah Elizabeth's Create This Book today is Create Smudges. Following with the theme of watercolor, I decided to paint with my fingers and watercolor paint. This time, I covered the pages with art paper so that it wouldn't smudge and go through the paper. So what I did was I dabbed on the colors that I wanted. And then I dabbed my fingers in water and I smudged the paint out. I tried to make the colors blend together using the water and letting the water naturally flow into the other colors. I noticed that the paper was getting a little bit beady, and it made me realize that I probably needed thicker paper. But it's okay because it adds to the overall texture. I did the same for the other side, and instead of using similar colors, I decided to paint a rainbow. Unfortunately, my camera screwed up, so I only managed to get the end of the rainbow. But essentially, I used my fingers to create those smudges. After I let the paint dry, I thought it was a little bit plain, just leaving it as it is, so I drew a house and I colored it in black, so it was like a silhouette. And then I wrote a quote, "Home is where the heart is." And if you remember my last video, I let you guys know that I really love going home and staying at home. I'm such a homebody. Are you guys like that too, or do you like to go outside? Let me know in the comments down below. Once again, my camera screwed up, so this time I couldn't show you that I drew cat paws holding onto balloons, and each of the balloons have a different attribute that I want to practice: patience, joy, love, kindness, and gentleness. So this is how it turned out in the end. I'm not 100% happy with it, but I think it's still a pretty cool looking picture. It's not my typical style, so it's great. Now let's recap. The first one I did was create a building, and then after that create unlikely art. And then in the last of the watercolor series, I did create smudges. Okay, so that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. For a shout out, you have to comment on my video down below so that I know you've subscribed to me. Otherwise, I can't always see it on my end. Thanks so much. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.